Hello again, YouTube. So the second episode of the Last of Us HBO series just dropped, and I am here to give my raw, unedited review as a massive Last of Us fan. We have another Ellie statue back there today. I actually got quite a few views on the last one for a channel my size, so that's pretty cool. Making these mainly for my friends and family who don't plan on watching the series, but I have played the games and have heard me nerd out about the games a lot. So without further ado, the show still has a ton of potential, and I think this episode was done well. I do have my complaints, but let's start off with what I think is done well. So I really appreciate the extra detail of the lore that we get to go into and how we actually get to see sort of the first few infected in the series. It starts off in Indonesia, and we have this lady who is brought in by the government because she's been studying cordyceps her entire life, and they're witnessing some of the very first human infected with the cordyceps. So there was a really creepy, eerie scene where the lady, it's sort of doing an autopsy. That might not be the correct term for it, but we've got this naked Indonesian lady who worked with, I think, wheat and rice, like at a wheat and white rice factory, which is how the infection spread. And a little fun tidbit on how Joel, Sarah, and Tommy didn't get infected in the first episode because Joel forgot the cake. They didn't have pancakes. And then Sarah didn't eat the biscuits or the cookies, so that's how the infection spread, was from bad crops. But yeah, it was really eerie. I knew the lady was dead, but I was kind of expecting her to jump up off the table. So it was great suspense. And then that lady tells them that there's no vaccine, there's no cure, there's no medicine. You just have to bomb the city. So that's what they do. We cut forward, and it shows Ellie sleeping and Joel and Tess watching over her to make sure that she doesn't turn in the night, which she doesn't. So that's a little bit different than how it goes in the game, but obvious, this is a show, there's going to be differences. But then we get a pretty big major difference, which really threw me for a loop. I didn't know how the series was going to go, because I believe in the game it's in Pittsburgh, where you get to go through this hotel and you get to have this fun little Ellie interaction where she does go and ring the bell and asks if they can take her luggage upstairs and all this stuff, and Joel calls her a weird kid. So spoilers for the game and for the show. Tess isn't there in the hotel in the game, so I was real confused that way that scene happened. Some other things that I'm a little bit sad and excited about is I think everyone should play the game after watching the show now, because there are plot differences and you get to build a relationship with Ellie, or you get to really see the relationship between Ellie and Joel build more in the game, and there's certain parts of dialogue that gets left out. One, personally, I know in the show Tess asked Ellie, how old are you? And she tells her 14, but what I enjoy is in the game there's a part where Joel and Tess and Ellie get separated because Tess is off getting information about getting loot from Marlene, since there's some differences on the whole reason why they're smuggling, since in the show they're trying to get a battery, in the game they're trying to get their guns back that Robert dealt them, or sold to the Fireflies. They weren't his to sell. But you get to see Joel ask Ellie, how old are you? What are you, like 12? And then Ellie ends up going and says, I'm 14. And the reason why Joel asked that question is because Sarah was 12 years old when she died, so you kind of get a cool little connection through that. So that's not in the show, but It's not that big of a deal. One thing I will bring up is I think the acting is good. It does not compare to the game, and that could be my bias for being in love with the game. It's not bad acting, but it doesn't live up to the acting in the game that Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson give. I sometimes felt like Bella Ramsey's Ellie fell a little flat this episode. So that was a little bit disappointing. I feel like Ellie would have said things a little bit differently or enunciated things a little bit differently and had different vocal ranges. But that's a very minor complaint, and I can't expect Bella Ramsey to be Ashley Johnson. But going back to kind of the plot, they do end up getting back into the museum, which does take place in the game, and we get to see a pretty interesting fight with clickers. I thought to myself, oh my goodness, Joel can actually go hand-to-hand combat with some clickers in the game. He'd be dead unless you have a shiv. But of course they're not gonna put that into the show. But the fight scene was really done well. It was creepy. I was on edge. And I have to give props to the set design. Oh my goodness, the environment, the set, the buildings, it is all beautiful. They have done an excellent job on that, and I can't give them enough praise for that. I'm really immersed into the world. So after they get through the museum, Ellie actually gets bit again. At first I thought she just reopened her wound, but she actually gets bit again. And then we get to see them make it to the Capitol. And another plot difference is some of the Fireflies were infected and were not being chased by Fedra. And instead, the infected, they can communicate through the ground. And so we see some cordyceps come up and go into their fingernails and communicate to this huge form of infected that we saw earlier. And give them their location, and then Tess reveals that she was bitten, and you get a very similar speech about how she was bitten an hour ago, Ellie's is 3 weeks old, and how Ellie's immunity is real, and begging Joel to do this for her to save Ellie. Then we get a pretty cool shot of Tess knocking down oil canisters, throwing grenades on the ground, and struggling to get a lighter to light up so that way she can just decimate all the infected so that way they can't follow Ellie and Joel. I do find it interesting. Ellie tries staying and fighting Joel not to leave Tess. In the game, her and Joel run and go, and then she's like, man, I can't believe we did that. I can't believe we just left her back there. So that was another interesting little plot detail. Very minor plot detail difference. But then, oh my goodness, we got such a gross scene. There's, as Tess is struggling to get the lighter to ignite, an infected walks up to her, and then how they had the cordyceps coming out of their mouth in the show, like they did in the concept art for the original game. Dude, he goes and he just makes out with Tess. It's like, you know, for those who have had interest in first kissing experiences, it's when somebody goes in for tongue where the other person's not expecting it. I don't know, it's just really uncomfortable and gross, but then she's able to get the lighter to ignite and blows the entire bottom floor, and Joel and Ellie look back and they see the explosion, and then they walk off, and Ellie's just trying to process it all. So I'm excited for episode 3. The show definitely has potential. You definitely have to go into it with an open mind and not expect it to be a 1-to-1 remake. And as long as you can go in like that, I think the show does an excellent job. I've had a wonderful time discussing it with my diehard friends, my casual friends, and then I actually have another friend who's never played the game before because he hasn't known me long enough and I haven't forced him to play it like I tend to do with all my friends, but he really enjoyed the first episode, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing more with my friends, and who knows, maybe I can possibly convince some of them to do a video with me because I just absolutely love discussing this. And if anyone actually watches this entire video, I'd appreciate comments. I know it's not really done well professionally, but I love to partake in the discussion of arguably my all-time favorite video game series. Crash Bandicoot, another Naughty Dog property, holds a very special place in my heart, but The Last of Us, man, so good. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for listening to me rambling, and I will see you guys next week for my review of episode 3.